It's again also if you have a little room that you will have all your tools. If it's just kicked down in the dress, okay. But if it's drawn on the wall, here's the hammer, here's the rig and so on, then you have to structure it.
Yeah. Yeah, my shit is a horror at the moment.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. But you live in central Copenhagen and you don't have kids, and it's very efficient for partying. Hi, and welcome to Manufacturing Matters, the podcast where we talk about matters around manufacturing. Joining me today again is Mikkel. It's very good to have you on again.
Good to be here again.
We just had a very good chat about the highway solution. Maybe you've already listened to that, or maybe this is the first chat of Manufacturing Matters that you're listening to. Today we're talking about the OEE Uplift approach, which is a very structured way of finding a problem and then moving towards solving it.
Yeah, let's get into details.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That was very vague, but I'm going to let the expert talk about it. Could you quickly tell me a bit about yourself?
Yes. As I mentioned in the phone podcast as well, my name is Mikkel. I've been working in manufacturing companies for the past 15, 16 years.
Yep.
And creating a lot of knowledge there as well. I'm not an expert, but I think the knowledge we have had come together with all the experts we have done for now has gained some good structure and process to making an uplift into gaining some insights and getting some optimization into the production.
Yeah, and that's I really like talking to you because you are a structured person. I'd say you're an expert, 15 years experience in big manufacturing companies. But yeah, I really love your structured approach to doing things. Highway solution was great. That was a 5-step approach, and now it's the OEE Uplift approach.
Yeah.
But first of all, there's an acronym at the start of that OEE. What is OEE in your words?
OEE is a really tough metric to understand, to be honest.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Talked a little bit about that in the former podcast, but OEE, overall equipment efficient, is the main translation of it. But for me, it's important to understand which parameters is in this metric. To understand OEE is for the day-to-day operator, it's not understandable at all. What is OEE?
Very abstract.
How do we measure? How it's calculated? You can calculate the OEE in many approaches, and you hear a lot. Okay, this is this methodology, and this is this one. I think it's to focus on the availability, the performance, and the quality.
Yeah.
But for me, you can still call it OEE if you only work with the availability and performance. It's just a main topic metric to combine the most effective ways of working with each parameter to combine it into one topic. So working with the availability, the capacity, the utilization of your machines, understand that part of it, lines and etc., and understand the performance of your SKU numbers, how each product is produced, all that kind of it, and understand the quality aspect of it in the last end.
Yeah. So it's like it's just one of these metrics that takes a lot of complex information and makes it simple, gives you a number. And then you look at the number, you don't have to get stuck on that, but you look at the trends as they're going up and down. And
OEE is a great main KPI, to be honest, to focus on as a key KPI. But you need to work with the parameters that are individual to understand the OEE.
Exactly, yeah.
Different industries, different productions, different environments. I think overall, that's not one solution for it, to be honest.
No, yeah, it's surprising how many different ones there are. I've been looking into it a bit because we're doing this academy on manufacturing intelligence, and then the first course we're doing is OEE. And yeah, just since 2000, there's been so many different sort of versions of it. And then every company's got their own version. But the main thing is you have your version of OEE, that's your main metric or KPI, and then you do it in a standardized way, and then you can see if it's going up or down. Yeah. Awesome. So OEE is very important to tracking effectiveness and how well the organization is doing, and equipment, sites, and plants and lines. So what is the OEE Uplift approach?
The OEE Uplift approach is an approach we have been working on within the teams. So it's not only an experience from one operator, an experience of a lot of operators and not operators, but also lean experts, leaders as well, all the knowledge put into one system, all the experience we have had working with the different companies, try to focus on having a structured framework to implementing OEE uplifts. The sprint model provides a structured framework within this to focus on the improvements. That's the main focus on it. What we very often do is we have a very wide focus. It's not only one thing we try to solve 5 things at a time.
Okay.
So the uplift is a narrow focus. You can take the funnel and say, okay, we want to be at the bottom. We cannot put everything in the funnel. There will be one issue, one challenge we need to solve in this one.
Yeah.
So it's a systematic and organized manner to solve this one. It will focus on get this one issue, as I mentioned, but also lead out to the target and more efficiency towards this issue in the last end. So try to solve one issue, not to solve 5, is the main topic of it, to say.
Yeah, so once you've got OEE in place in your organization, your site or whatever, depending on how large you are, and you want to increase that number, then this is a way to attack that.
Attack the main issue to get a targeted on that baseline you have the data from, and try to get some effective results into that.
Yeah.
Then when you have done this sprint, you can start from scratch with the next challenge.
Yeah. Yes. So that's what the OEE Uplift approach is. And
Mainly, yeah.
I guess you kind of covered this as well. The next question is, why is it important to follow this approach?
It's quite important because you have these, crucial for optimization in the manufacturing processes. You need to have a model. You need to have an approach to solve the challenge you see ahead. If you have the data, now you need to understand the data and work with the data. So if you have a structured approach, again, as the highway solution, this structured approach in the OEE Uplift will help you gain the insights. You have the data, how to work with the data, how to work with the stakeholders and the project leads into this.
Yeah.
To have focus on one issue, as I mentioned, I'll say that a lot because that is the fundamentals of this one.
Yeah.
And try to get into this team and solve this in the best way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the Navy SEAL approach, like attack one problem at a time.
You can say by enhancing the OEE and increasing the efficiency, you can also minimize the downtime and get more effective results out of it.
Yeah.
So that is the main focus into this.
Yeah, because the OEE is just a number, right? But why are we tracking that? What is the goal of that?
Yeah.
You've used this at a lot of sites, I guess, the OEE Uplift approach. And I was just wondering, do you have an example of a common problem that you'd find, just to make it a bit more concrete for somebody?
What is very often what we say, okay, let's get a little into details. We see a decreasement in the OEE.
Yeah.
The first basis is to understand that. Why is the OEE decreased? We see that it's gone from 80 to 75. What kind of issues been? That's what also we mentioned about the OE and the complexity of this metric. It can be due to the stops. It can be due to have some changeovers that has been an issue. It can be some flow related to the micro stops, also as the speed, so more the performance part of it.
Yeah.
So that will be the main figures we worked with. I'll say.
So maybe new products come in and the changeovers aren't set up right for it or something. Or...
I'll say two things that stands out. What we have seen the most and what we're mostly working with is the micro stops to understand the flow, to get a more stable flow. Try to eliminate those small interruptions during the day.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part of it because it's not visible. It's not visible for in the data. What is the issue? You can just see you have a lot of small interruptions during the day. And then the process starts. To get into depth, we get into the steps in the model as well, but try to understand those being in production, doing Gemba and related stuff down there.
Yeah, I've heard Microsofts have come up a lot, actually. So in the case studies that Gabriel, our very good cameraman, sound guy, editor, has made, so Broxburn bottlers, different companies around the world, using Factbird, Microstops seems to come up again and again, because when they were sort of manually writing down stops, that's stuff that gets forgotten, and the length of time is completely wrong.
Yeah.
So overestimated or underestimated or whatever. But as soon as you start automating your data collection, then you capture them.
Exactly.
And it's really interesting how that's a big topic. I think we'll do a podcast on that one soon. Yeah. So we know what it is, and we know why it's important. So what is the approach then?
The approach is if you know a Scrum approach, is a little similar to that, I will say.
Yeah.
But it's focusing on what we call step one is the cockpit. There can be a data hub, there can be a system, multiple data sources, one data source, but understand the line, the machine, the production we're looking at. What is it and why do we want to initiate this project? We see we have a decrease in the OEE. Okay, let's deep dive into that. So we'll make a quick analyze to start looking into, okay, which parameter is it we're looking at? Are we looking at the microstops? Are we looking at some changeover issues? Are we using more time to do a changeover than expected due to the standards? Or do we have a lot of technical issues? Or do we have some, let's say, quality issues or speed issues due to performance?
So you're looking at the stock categories.
Stock categories. Each parameter that defines the OEE.
Yeah.
So the OEE is the metric that we deep dive into. Okay, which parameter is it? So let's say it's the microstops. Let's just use that as a case example.
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
So then we deep dive into the microstops. We have some data on it, how many amounts, how many minutes there is,
when that
happening, and so on. So we'll present that for, let's say, for the project. That will be the line, the factory we'll focus on. Maybe 1 line, 3 lines. That depends on how big we see we can come into the project. Also, if 3 lines are most similar, we can do it at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you can push one from to the other. It's the same approach.
Yeah.
Then we have a kickoff with the factory. Start focusing on, okay, this is the presentation, this is the analysis, this is what we can see. What do you see and what do you experience in your day? Because we're not the experts, we just have the data.
Yeah.
Then we go into a dialogue about it and start planning, okay, is this something we need to look into? Or is this not an issue? It's just the data telling us, is it actually an issue in the reality?
Yeah.
And it's also what you experience in your day-to-day work. Then we'll get this, what to say in alignment. Okay, let's focus on this line. This is where we have the biggest issues.
Yeah.
Then we'll go into what we call the analyze phase. So now we have defined an area. We have defined what the focus should be, and that will be microstops. We cannot work with microstops at the same time we try to improve a changeover, and we cannot reduce technical downtime at the same time.
No, one at a time.
One at a time. So already here we have used a funnel, you can say, to narrow down the focus area.
Yeah, great.
And that's increased the commitment and increased the understandable as well, because then we have one thing we need to understand, and one thing we need to be aligned of. So then we'll go into what we call the deep analyze to understand more in deep, to understand, okay, this microstops, when does they appear? Is through different periods of the day? Is it every time after we have had a changeover, we have some, let's say, ramp up before we all go at full speed again?
Yeah.
And look, doing some GMP in production with the team to understand, okay, every time we see a microstops, do some frequency studies, GMP. Okay, what is actually we see on the line? What is the interruptions we see? Is it because we need to raise the stops into the tablet? Is it due to we need to make some quality measures? Or is it because the operator cannot fulfill his speed, so he needs to stop the line until he's back on track?
Yeah.
Or is it interruptions from other things? Do we miss meat and etc.? You can mention a lot of things. So we get some frequency studies to understand, let's say, what is the top 5, top 10 challenges that interrupts the production, the flow, so they gain some item stops.
Yeah.
Try to understand that. Then we go back, present it for the factory, and then we create the baselines. So what is the baselines? For the last 3 months, we have seen this. This is the baseline. Let's say we have 50 minutes of microstop each day.
Yeah.
That will be the baseline. Then we agree on what is the target within this sprint. So within this OEE Uplift, we'll focus on reducing the microstops. Let's just take a theoretical case, 50%.
Yeah.
So we'll go from 50 minutes to 25 minutes per day.
Yeah.
This target, we always try to focus on making this realistic and ambitious at the same time.
Yeah.
There's always 2 ways, you could say.
Yeah, it's got to be challenging to meet it, but it's got to be possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to celebrate the success, because if you always set up targets that isn't achievable.
Yeah.
You'll never gain these success feelings. You never have to just buy cake for the team to celebrate it and okay, now we'll go from 25 to 15. That could be the next step.
Yeah.
So make this ladder approach within the target setting, I will say, step by step as well.
Yeah.
And then we shake hands with the factory, the line. Okay, this is the baseline. This is the new target. This is what we'll focus on.
Okay.
Then you can say that the next phase is start. And that's the implementation part of it. So then we start focusing on, between the analyzing and implementation steps, we focus on workshops.
Yeah.
Bring in all the stakeholders, all the experts. We are just the facilitators into this process.
Yeah.
Of course, there's some knowledge from cross countries, gaining some knowledge, seeing these lines before, working with similar issues, but it's always in new situations. You can use your experience, you can use your tools as a facilitator, but the experts is the managers, is the production workers.
Yeah,
they know what's going on out there.
There's a lot of variables in a production site, so no two are going to be the same. Different people, different setups, different temperatures, who knows what.
Exactly.
The supply chain. Are there stops happening because of something that's different earlier in the process? Yeah.
So then we start to get them into the process and start so they can focus on the issue. They need to understand what the issue is and start focus on this workshop with what we call the main parameters that have affected this. So that can be due to the flow, due to missing products, due to what it could be, the things we mentioned before. So then we start working, okay, what can the solution be on this? And we'll start tracking. Do we have all the materials at the right time? Is the place for it? That could be some of the issues. Try to focus on, okay, how can we solve these challenges who made a lot of stops during the day?
Yeah. And that's still with all the stakeholders in the
Still with all the stakeholders, so we get their opinions in.
Yeah.
If we get their opinions in, if I go out and tell them, just from my experience within all industries, if I go out and tell them, okay, this is the issue, you need to do this.
This is the solution.
Then I lose them from day one. We need to get their commitment, their inputs, because then we'll also own it. They will have this, I need some spirit when I go out from this workshop or this meeting. I actually want to do this. I want to get to know this. I want to solve this.
Yeah.
So this I want all our stakeholders to have, so they can work with this going on.
Yeah, you don't want to come across like an arrogant doctor, like, you got to go jogging. It's like, so you got to get buy-in from the patient or the people or the colleagues or whoever.
We have the tools, we have the role to facilitate this, but they need to own it.
Yeah.
Because we will not be there for a long time. A sprint will go for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the issue.
Yeah.
So it's just a sprint, an agile approach to it. So they need to own it, because the day we leave, it's just been day-to-day business.
Yeah.
So focusing on that, and then in the last part of analyzing part of it, now we have this, and then we have to decide, okay, this is the things we want to work with.
Yeah.
So a little bit of problem-solving approach, you can say. We say, okay, we think will have the biggest effect. So that will be the first issues we'll work with.
Number one. Do you also look at how easy they are to...
We do a risk evaluation on it. Okay, what is the impact, and what is also difficulty and so on. Yeah. Exactly. So try to, of course, there'll be some, what we say, quick wins, but also be some, okay, we know it'll go for a long time, so we need starting the test and evaluation phase right now.
Yep.
But focused on what's gaining the most impact on the overall figure.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we go into what we call implementation phase. Implementation phase is focused on, now we have these points we'll work with in the action log, and there will be day-to-day business.
Yeah.
So we will start to test and evaluate each day, each week, on all the things we're doing.
Do you have like do you do it in a system where this is my hypothesis?
Yeah.
Change this. Yeah. Okay.
That's the part of the problem solving workshop, as we talked about. We have this hypothesis we want to work with.
Yeah.
Then we have a tool where we track it. So we have a daily check-ins with all the main stakeholders, mainly production and line leaders. What have you seen today? This was the agreement from yesterday. This is how the figures look. Are we better or worse than the baseline? Are we going for the right track? How is the results of the test? Went good? Went bad? What was the learnings as well? We do that every day. These small check-ins, and every week we have a longer check-ins with the management as well.
Yep.
This is the result for this week. This is what we worked on. Everything is going as planned. And this is the agreement for next week.
It's such a good approach to like, any sort of job or organization. That's how you change things.
We think that's how we change it, but also when we get the ownership out to them.
Yeah.
Because they need to track it daily and understand the figures they're looking at. So when we're talking microstops, a specific daily KPI could be how many minutes did we have? It's really difficult to measure on the amounts of microstops because it can be one microstop on 20 seconds, it can be on 40 seconds.
Yeah, it's the aggregate amount.
Aggregate amount of minutes to focus on that. To understand what has the main challenges been during the day. We talk about that. But also, I would like to pinpoint one of the main focuses is when we have these daily check-ins. We also try to focus on, yesterday we were on 15 minutes. Really awesome. And the baseline was 50.
Yeah.
So to learn from what we did good is very important as well.
Yeah.
Because if you take the white paper with the black dot in the middle, the only thing your eye will see is the black dot.
Yeah.
Because that's the challenge, that's the issue. We need to focus on all the white around it. What is the good things and take the learnings and experience from that.
Yeah.
So then we'll just add, Gabriel, what went good last night? Okay, the materials was there in the right time. Everything came in, it was just a flow. Okay, how can we do that every day?
Yeah.
How can we make sure of that? Okay, there was a good communication. So taking these knowledges in when we did the good days and gain the benefits from that.
Yeah, that's such a core part of Factbird as a company. It's finding out when the good days are and then making sure you have more good days.
Exactly.
That's one way.
Gain the insights from those days.
Yeah.
What did we did good that day to understand it?
Yeah.
And in the implementation phase for a couple of weeks, it will be testing and evaluating, follow up. If we don't see the results, we go on the next one.
Yeah.
Maybe go back to see if it's the right hypothesis we have, the right evaluation. Maybe do some more frequency study to understand it. But hopefully see the trend going down on the microstops in this case.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be very unlikely that you wouldn't see a positive change through following that approach, through the workshop and the stakeholders and the data analysis and all that. You should find a way to...
Some experience, sometimes we work with things, this was not the right hypothesis we need to work with.
Yeah.
Didn't see the results we wanted to see. Just go back, take the next one, or maybe deep dive more into it.
Yeah.
But at some point, suddenly we will find the right path to go and we'll see the results immediately.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then it's very important to understand, what did we change? So that's leading us into the next phase, what we call standardization. Because now we start seeing the results.
Yeah, so you found the right path, as you say. Yeah.
Let's say we change something so the materials will be there every time in that matter. Okay, what did we change? Now we need to standardize this. We need to make a standard operation procedure so everybody needs to know the role as well, the responsibility, but also this is how you do this procedure.
Yeah. Also for new people coming in.
Then everybody will do it in the same approach as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the part of this, you can call it best practice. You need to have a best practice, and the best practice is only the best practice until you make a new change.
Yeah.
So that's the part of it, and train everybody in that. So that's the standardization phase. Focus on what you've changed, standardize it, and train and introduce it to all the operators.
Yeah.
To make sure this is, and make it visible as well. That is the main steps into the standardization phase.
So the tricky part, it sounds like, is finding what the problem is. But once you got that, then the solution part's actually relatively easy.
Yeah, again, you can use the funnel as the same approach there. When you start analysis, the funnel will always be big. But when you came down to, in the end, it will have a narrow scope, a narrow end. So now you have worked with so much, and in the end, you have found the right path, hopefully. And then the standardization phase is just to wrap it up a little bit.
Awesome.
You can say if you turn the funnel ahead and you start with, I know that's the issue. But then I go down, the funnel will get wider and wider because it was actually not the root cause. Maybe it was the location of the stop or the issue, but not the root cause for it.
Yeah,
so that's the approach we try to use for it.
If you don't follow the right approach, it won't sort of set in, and it'll just come back and bite you.
Have this narrow scope and understand it before we should.
Nice.
So what in the end of the standardization phase, we're starting to see, now we have changed it, we have trained it. Now this should live with the operators. It should be daily business for them. This should be a part of their working day.
So is there another step after the standardization then?
The last step is step 6. That's the review phase. To focus on, okay, now we'll sit down with the stakeholders we have had with the project. Okay, we started here with the baselines. This is how it looks now. Maybe we have not fully achieved our target, but the trend is positive. Okay, we trust that we will gain within a few weeks. So we will not facilitate anymore. We will leave it to you because we trust the things we have done together. Will cover in a better day and a better best practice this, and it's actually owned by them at the moment. We'll talk about the learnings we have done, not only for the factory, but what have also for the Uplift project. What went good, what went bad.
Do you also focus on sharing knowledge between sites at that point?
We do that afterwards when we share. So when we gain all this knowledge and have this dialogue, what was the result of it? What was the earnings and etc. To focus on now, we make some documentation. Now we need to document everything. We do that through the process as well because documentation is important to go back. What did we do in week 3? What did we do in week 2?
So you can replicate
to understand it exactly. And then we make what we call a review documentation. So that's the final review. We send it out to all stakeholders and we share it between all the teams. This is what the baseline why we started this project. This was the main topic. This was the results. This was the learnings. Shared with some main topics, and just if you have interest, have the same issue, reach out, and we can support in that sake.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, you've got this great internal newsletter that you do. I've seen that's.
When we share these songs and
it's really good for sharing knowledge. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's really good. So
quite detailed, but
but
I hope you get it.
I think that was really efficient. There'll be a write-up on factbird.com under the Manufacturing Matters section of the website if you want to read it in more detail. So I just take these interviews and then listen to them and write them out. But yeah, first step 1 is the cockpit. Step 2 is planning. 3, analyzing. 4, implementation. 5, standardize. And number 6, review. And then crack open the champagne. Hopefully. And move on to the next one.
Either way, I think each sprint, each approach, we learn something new. That's the most important part of it. We get insights into our production, not only us as a facilitators, but the production. That's the most important. They get to know the production better. They have worked with some kind of standardizations, worked with some tools to gain them some knowledge and build their tool case, you can say, stronger for the next challenge going ahead.
And I really like the knowledge management part of it. So it's not just on the individuals that were involved in this process at that time, like new people coming in, they're taking these learnings and then they can build on top of it and things get better and better.
Hopefully.
Definitely. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Mikkel. I'll let you go for today. And thank you for listening. See you next time. Hey, Gabriel. You gonna turn that camera off? Thanks, buddy.